Stellar Blade is one of the only games where people tried to have a serious cultural debate while half of the internet was zooming in on Eve's ass. And honestly, that might be the perfect summary of this game, because for some reason Stellar Blade became impossible to talk about normally. You either had to act like it was the second coming of gaming, or act like Eve's character design personally walked into your house and set feminism on fire. And now that it's been about 2 years since the original PS5 release, I think we can finally ask the question, was Stellar Blade actually good? Alright, go grab some coffee and get comfortable because it's time to talk about Stellar Blade. Yep, before anybody says it, Eve is obviously sexualized. That is not exactly a mystery. You don't look at Stellar Blade and think, wow, what a modest and understated character design philosophy. The game knew what it was doing, Shift Up knew what they were doing, the marketing team knew what they were doing. And yeah, everybody actually knew it. But the weird thing is, the entire conversation about Stellar Blade became so obsessed with Eve's design that people almost forgot there was actually a video game attached to her. Like yeah, the main character is attractive. That's a very bold observation. But we're about to talk about the game now. And the game, it's actually good. It's not perfect, it's not some flawless masterpiece, but it's good. Really good actually, I enjoyed it. The biggest reason Stellar Blade still holds up is the combat. Cause I'll be honest, before I played it, I thought it might be one of those games that look amazing in the trailers but feel kind of average in your hands. You know the type, the animation, they look good, the main character looks like a I-Team had spiritual awakening, and then the gameplay feels like you're hitting enemies with wet pool noodles or something. But Stellar Blade is not that. The combat has weight. The parries feel satisfying, the dodges feel clean, the boss fights have rhythm. When you mess up, it's usually like you got greedy, not like the game robbed you in broad daylight. And that matters so much. I mean, you can have the prettiest animations in the world, but if the combat feels bad, nobody wants to play it. And at that point, it's just a very expensive screensaver. Stellar Blade avoids that. It has that nice action game curve where you at first feel kind of awkward, then slowly you start to understand the timing, and eventually you're parrying some disgusting nightmare creatures like you personally choreographed the fight. That is the moment every action game wants, that little switch in your brain where you go, oh wait, I'm kind of nice with this, I'm actually kind of good, and then BAM! You get hit in the face because you got confident for half a second. Whew, what a beautiful genre. The bosses are also a big part of why the game works. They're not all perfect, but the good ones actually have that proper dramatic action game energy. Big horrible creatures, flashy attacks, weird designs, music is going way harder than it needs to. I actually love it when a boss enters the room and the soundtrack starts acting like the composer was personally insulted by it. And Stellar Blade does that a lot. The music is honestly one of the best parts of the entire game. I mean, sometimes you're walking through a ruined area, everything is dead, the world is falling apart, and then the vocals come in like the game is trying to make you feel emotions while you're wearing an outfit called something insane like skin suit. That contrast is really part of the charm. The game is horny, like really horny, stylish, dramatic, and strangely sincere at the same time. Which should not work as well as it does, but it does. And that is where I think Stellar Blade got underrated in the actual conversation. Everybody was talking about Eve and the ass, which fair enough, the game did not exactly hide her under a winter coat. But Stellar Blade has a stronger atmosphere than people give it credit for. The ruined earth, the camps, Zion barely hanging on, the lonely music, the weird religious sci-fi stuff, the monsters, the empty highways, the dead cities. There is mood here. And to be fair, it's not always perfectly written, but it has a feeling. And honestly, feeling goes a long way. Some games have amazing writing, but no identity. Some games have a million systems, but no soul. Some games have 400 hours of content, and Ubisoft forgot to mention that only 12 of those are fun. Stellar Blade is not like that. It knows what it wants to be. It wants to be a stylish sci-fi action game with cool combat, beautiful character design, dramatic music, weird monsters, and just enough emotional weight to make the whole thing feel bigger than woman hits alien with a sword. And I respect that. Because a lot of modern games feel like they were designed by 6 departments trying not to offend each other. Stellar Blade feels like the developers had a vision, and that vision was, what if Nier Automata, Bayonetta and Sekiro had a very attractive cousin who listens to K-pop? And then nobody stopped them. Now the game does have problems. The open areas are fine, but they're not exactly amazing. They're not terrible, but sometimes you're running through the desert thinking, okay, I understand this is a world. Could the world maybe have a slightly less sand? Some of the side quests are decent, and some of them feel like the game remembered it needed side quests and quickly asked somebody to invent a sad person standing next to a vending machine. And the story is messy. Not completely incoherent, but definitely messy. It has cool ideas about humanity, identity, artificial life, saving a broken world, all that good sci-fi shit you have seen a couple of thousand times. But sometimes the writing does not hit as hard as the music and visuals clearly want it to. The game will frame a scene like it's about to destroy you emotionally, and then a character talks like they're reading the back of a PlayStation 3 game case. It's not awful, it's just that very specific anime dialogue energy where people explain their feelings like they're submitting a report. But even with that, I would rather have a flawed game with strong identity than a perfectly safe game that feels like it was created in a meeting called Q3 Engagement Opportunity. Stellar Blade has rough edges, but they're attached to something memorable, and that is what matters. Because 2 years later, I don't think the interesting thing about Stellar Blade is whether it proved the haters wrong or whatever. The whole framing is boring. The interesting thing is that Stellar Blade showed there's a still huge audience for games that are stylish, I mean a little too stylish sometimes, confident, a little shameless and actually fun to play. Not every game needs to apologize for being cool. Not every character design has to look like it was approved by a committee of exhausted LinkedIn users. Not every action games need to reinvent the medium. Sometimes a game can just say, here is a sword, here is a monster, here is a soundtrack that sounds like a Heaven Got Combat update. Go have fun. And you know what? That is enough. Stellar Blade is not perfect. It is not the deepest game ever made. It is not some secretly misunderstood intellectual masterpiece that only true visionaries understand. It is a very good action game with strong combat, amazing music, great visual identity, and enough personality to survive some of the dumbest discourse cycles I have ever seen. And honestly, that might be more impressive than being perfect. Because a perfect game can still be boring. Stellar Blade is not boring. It's messy, stylish, confident, horny, sometimes a little too horny, dramatic, fun, occasionally awkward, and weirdly sincere. Which, now that I think about it, is also a pretty accurate description of gaming as a hobby. So yeah, 2 years later, Stellar Blade still holds up. Not because internet was normal about it. The internet was absolutely not normal about it. But because underneath everything, there was a real game there. A good one. And sometimes that is actually all you need. Alright, subscribe and I love you. Bye. Mwah.